Hello again, everyone. Welcome to Exciting Episcopalians. We may have to change the name of the show to Thrilling Episcopalians because our guest this week is Beth Johns. And Beth, you were just telling me you've been here forever. Define the year that ever began.
I came in 72 or 73.
Yeah. Why?
Well, two reasons. And one was that exciting things were happening in the national church.
Yeah.
They were revising the prayer book and the hymnal. They were working on that too. They were sending out copies to the congregations to try out, to make comments and send back. And the church the Episcopal church that I was attending at the time and that I had grown up in was having none of this. Okay. The rector did not believe in change, and he saw no reason to change anything. And so we were not participating. Also, women were being invited to sit on vestries, which they had not in the past. Young women were being allowed to acolyte, which was not an option available to me when I was growing up. And so I wanted to be somewhere to participate in these changes. And the most important thing was I had a daughter who was ready for Sunday school, and there was no Sunday school available at St. Paul's.
Where did you grow up?
At St. Paul, I grew up on Munjoy Hill.
You did? What street?
Turner Street.
Oh, no kidding. Yeah?
1 block from the promenade.
Yeah?
Wonderful place. That was such a blessing to be there.
Oh, I bet.
So
I didn't come from an exciting neighborhood, but I kind of grew up in that kind of environment. There were a million kids. And
oh, yes.
What'd you do for fun when you were a kid? Did you have?
We just went outside and played. We went down to the promenade because we were a block there, and there were endless things to do. And used our imagination and
think of it.
Played
Think
house
of growing up a block from the Atlantic. That view.
It was beautiful. Yeah. It was beautiful. In the wintertime, the city closed off Quebec and Montreal Street, so we could slide.
Yeah.
And
did you have those smoke pots they have sawhorses and smoke pots at the end of the streets of the traffic?
No, they just did the sawhorse.
Yeah.
Horses,
what fun.
But yeah. Great place to go.
When did you have to go home? When the street lights came on? Or?
Well, no. In my house, you ate supper at 5 o'clock.
And okay.
So if I wanted supper, I had to be home at 5 o'clock.
Could you slide at night?
No.
Okay.
Once I was home, I was home.
So strict family, strict mom and dad?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Strict dad. He was the ruler of the house.
What did he do for a living?
He was a carpenter and a handyman for Percival Baxter.
No kidding.
My dad he only went to like the 3rd or 4th grade. He grew up in Canada, and his family was a fisherman.
Yeah. Where in Canada? New Brunswick?
New Brunswick.
Northern New Brunswick.
And then Nova Scotia for a while. Yeah. And when he came here to the United States, he had no education, and so he got a job just as a handyman.
Was English his native language?
Yes.
Yeah. And so, did you ever see Percival Baxter?
Yes.
What'd you think of the old guy?
Well, he wasn't one of my favorite people, but...
Give me a recollection or something.
Well, the thing that I remember most about him was that he cut off my dad's pension because he said he couldn't afford it anymore.
Really?
And so, but...
I don't want to reel on Percival Baxter, but why don't we? I have a friend who is a great historian, and I have it documented. He allegedly had a mistress, and he put her on a pension at 65, and he had enough money for her.
I bet it was the lady who worked in his office. Because he had a woman who worked in his office who was...
Pension.
Yeah, but...
Right. That'll be my forthcoming book that I'm only halfway through. All right, we're not here to blast old Percival, but where'd you go to high school?
I went to Portland High.
Portland High? Yeah. How'd you get there? Did you walk down from the hill?
Oh, yes. We walked everywhere.
Come on.
Well, my family didn't have a car, so...
Really? Yeah.
So we used to walk to South Portland.
Really? What would you do there? Visit?
Well, we'd go to dances at South Portland High and stuff like that. As a high schooler, I didn't do it as a kid.
Yeah, think of that.
Yeah.
Were you a good student?
Yes, I was.
Yeah. And what became of you after that? Did you go to work?
I did.
What'd you have give me a good first grown-up job?
Well, it was while I was still in high school.
Okay.
It was then Casco Bank, which
Oh.
I don't know what it is now. It
It's been
morphed
so many.
into,
It was Bank
yeah.
of New England and
Yeah, but anyway, they came to school and recruited people to come work in their accounting department part-time.
no kidding.
And so I went, it paid better than babysitting.
Yep.
So I went to work there, and then they offered me a job
Yep.
when I graduated.
Pam's uncle, Jack Daigle, worked at that bank.
Yeah.
So, and so then what happened to you?
And
Did
then
you
I-
get married?
I did get married.
I knew this. What year and where?
I don't remember the year. It was 1960 or 61. I got married at St. Joseph's Catholic Church. My then husband and I were the first mixed marriage to be married in the church,
And by a mixed marriage, you are referring to?
because I did not convert to Catholicism.
Okay, but they let you come over as an Episcopalian.
They did. They didn't
Wild
like it.
times then.
They
Wild-
didn't like it, but
Yeah.
they did.
Yeah.
But we were the first couple that was allowed that.
Interesting.
Bec-
And how about children?
I have one wonderful daughter.
We see from time to time. And was she raised an Episcopalian?
Well, she was, because her dad and I were divorced when she was about 3.
Okay.
And before that, he would take her to church with him. And then he would come home and I would go to, he would stay with her when she was too little.
Yeah.
And so we would go separately.
Yeah.
And then when she got a little older, he took her with him. But then when we were divorced, he didn't come to get her to take her to church. So she had to come to church with me.
Well,
so.
good. We'll take them any way we can get them.
So-
And we had a good Sunday school going here.
We
and-
did.
Yeah.
The first Sunday that we came here, I had called the office to find out when Sunday school started. And at that time, the kids came to church for the first part of the service and then went down to Sunday school
Yep.
halfway through. And so I had to wait in coffee hour for
There
her.
you go. Yeah, good.
And
Who was nice to you early?
Kathy Beach, she was my first friend at
Trinity,
Trinity
yeah.
Church, and the cause of my getting stuck in the kitchen for the rest of my
How'd that happen?
Kathy's mom, a mother-in-law,
Yeah.
Bee Beach, who was a sweetheart, belonged to a guild called St. Hilda's Guild. It was a women's guild. It was sort of the precursor to the Fellowship Commission.
Yeah.
And they used to do receptions and stuff like that. And they were doing a small wedding reception here at Trinity on a Saturday. And Kathy asked me if I would come and help
Yeah.
because they needed more people, younger blood.
Yeah.
So
And so a wedding then oftentimes was you got married right here and then you went into Lincoln Hall for the reception.
absolutely.
Boy, that's a good idea. I don't know why people don't do it now. I mean, $25,000, $50,000, $60,000
I know.
just
I
a
know.
wedding, right? I want to go to a wedding in a church and walk into the reception hall and have a casserole, but those days are probably gone, you know. You know, I don't understand why I got to drive to, Sunday River or something. But
Bee Beach, when I showed up, Bee Beach handed me a bag of rice, a big bag of rice, because they were having chicken a la king and they were going to serve it over rice.
yeah,
And she said to me, "You can make the rice." No directions on the package. I grew up, my 2 sisters were a lot older than I, so I grew up like an only child. There were 3 of us at the best of times. And she gives me a 50-pound bag of rice or something, a 30-pound to make rice. But it came out all
good.
right.
That's
so-
the key. Well, when I think of you as a Christmas fair. But I also think that you've done everything. So,
Well, I have, but it's only because I've been around a long time.
well, yeah, but
You know.
also because you care enough to get involved.
Well, I do. I enjoy being involved. I love this place and the people in it. So
Now, well, let's start at the bottom. You've served on vestry
several times.
several times, 10, 12, 15 years total. Yeah. Talk a little bit about the evolution of the church and, the people here, etc.
Well, things were different, as other people have said too. When I first came, that we had a lot of more prominent people here, doctors, lawyers, bankers, And
Did you know Angus King? Do you
I
remember
did not.
Angus? Okay.
I did not from here.
Yeah.
I don't remember him.
Yeah.
But he couldn't have been a regular attender, or I
He
would
was
have
for a while, a couple of years, I guess.
Yeah. But anyway, we had some very prominent Republicans here.
Mm-hmm.
Fred Scribner, who was
Secretary of State, wasn't he? I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he signed my
well,
driver's license.
he was Undersecretary of State, maybe. But he was very prominent.
I thought he signed my driver's license. Not really, but you know.
For the state of Maine.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he was a lawyer, and
Yeah.
he was a really nice man.
Yeah.
And
Mert.
Mert Henry,
Sure.
who was
Margaret Chase Smith's
yeah.
right hand. He was the treasurer in every one of her campaigns
Yeah.
until the end when he was like honorary treasurer.
and
so.
he again was very devoted to Trinity.
Oh yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
but I have to tell you that prominent as all these people were, they weren't the ones who did the work.
No, that doesn't surprise me at all.
So hence the St. Hilda's Guild and the
Yeah.
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 So.
How were women treated in the 70s? Trinity was. Are you saying that we were avant-garde and doing a little bit better than some?
No, I'm not saying that.
Okay. What are you saying?
Well, let me tell you about my first vestry experience. There was another woman and I, Georgia Eustace was her name, and she was elected junior warden that year.
Okay.
And the treasurer of the church did not believe women should be on the vestry. And so...
How old was that guy, the treasurer? Was he 30? Was he 60?
He was probably 50-ish.
Okay, yeah.
And, but it was just not, women didn't sit on the vestry, just like women didn't serve at the altar. And he would come to vestry meetings every meeting,
Yeah.
and we met in the audience room around a round table.
Mm-hmm.
And he would come to the meeting, and he would have 2 Hershey's Kisses. And he would set one in front of Georgia and one in front of me, and he'd pat us on the head and say, "Sweets to the sweet."
And so you got up and smashed him right in the face.
I did not,
No, oh, okay.
but we were tempted.
But that's why that
But that
pent up
was-
anger's in there, because you didn't smack him right in the mouth.
That was sort of the attitude. The first woman vestryman at Trinity was named Louise Fettinger.
Okay.
And she was on vestry before I came, but not much before
Yeah.
I came. So it was a new occurrence to have women.
Yeah. And what kind of women were taking those jobs? Like, I know that Harriet Henry, is that Mrs. Henry's name?
Yep.
I barely knew her because she passed away a little after the time we got here. She's a prominent person. She was the first woman judge in Maine. Was that kind of woman stepping forward on the vestry, or were you guys kind of fighting your way up, or what was happening? Shouldn't say guys, I should say y'all.
I don't think Harriet ever served on the vestry, but
Yeah.
she was on some committees.
Yeah.
I don't honestly know because it was before I got here.
Yeah,
And when I was first here, I was not involved in the workings of the church, of course.
Yeah.
You know, I just came to church and brought Terry to Sunday school. So,
Yeah.
but so I'm not sure how it involved. It would be interesting to know that. But it was, I think, sort of a struggle
Yeah.
for not well received.
Isn't that interesting?
It is interesting, but of course it's so different now. Thank
Yeah.
goodness.
Well, thank goodness. And you're still running the Christmas fair.
Just because nobody else will do it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. What have some of your other efforts been here at the church?
You know, I think I've done almost everything except sing in the choir. So.
Your day's
And
coming.
for
Your
and for
day's
that,
coming.
there's a blessing. We should all say
Yeah.
a Thanksgiving for that.
Yeah.
But, you know, when you're around long enough and, you know, somebody says, "Will you help me?" Then you do. So, but the Fellowship Commission and the Altar Guild are the 2 things that
Yeah.
I've...
What do we need to improve around here? Think we should fire Peter and get somebody else in here? Or
No,
you
I
think
think Peter's doing a good job.
Okay, there you go. There's 2 of us, Peter. But as we try to rebuild the place, is there anything that you'd
Well,
like to say?
you know, we have to change the culture. People don't go to church anymore. I mean, that's why we had all those prominent people here in the 70s when I came, because that's what you did.
People went to church.
You went to church.
Yeah.
It was just and there were no stores open. There weren't any school events. There were no sporting events.
No soccer. Yeah. What do you get out of coming to church?
It feeds my soul, as they say.
Me too. I mean,
Yeah, it's just that simple.
yeah. I need with my, I don't know, my, whatever it's called, my style of life or my
You
I'm a
need
high
that
energy-
weekly.
I need to stop and slow down and think for a while.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah,
and-
absolutely.
and church
Absolutely.
does that.
This
And-
church has been a blessing.
Yeah. And so you were a cradle Episcopalian.
I was, except for the 3 years when, between being strong enough to walk down the hill to St. Paul's, I went to St. Lawrence Congregational Church with our landlady because she was the Christian Ed director there.
That's the stone church that's
Yeah.
now like a performing arts center or
Right,
something up on the hill.
right.
Beautiful facility.
And so it was just a couple blocks from
Yeah.
my house. And
Yeah.
when I was a baby, they pushed me in a carriage.
Yeah.
But when I
Yeah.
outgrew the carriage, then, and my mother was too impatient to wait for me to walk fast enough, I guess. So,
Interesting.
so I spent 3 years at
Lawrence.
St. Lawrence. And except for that, always the Episcopal Church. So.
Well, it's wonderful talking to you. You're the one of the rocks of the church, one of the foundations. You know.
No, it's just longevity.
Well, it's an important longevity, and we're really glad you're here. Anything you want to share with our audience before we leave?
No, except that we should all be coming to church. The world needs church.
And I don't want to stretch this out, but when Damar Hamlin went down, that kid, everybody was praying. Pray for Damar. Pray, pray, pray. Well, come on into church and pray. That's what you learn to do.
Absolutely.
But it's been a big couple of weeks for prayer. But so let's hope that it continues. I'm Bill Green. My guest has been Beth Johns, who's been at Trinity Episcopal Church, it sounds like, for 50 years.
I guess.
How does that happen?
I don't.
Let's see, 23 minus 70, 50 years. And we appreciate you being with us today, Beth. We appreciate you all joining in. See us next week for another episode of Exciting Episcopalians.